You're listening to Beyond the Measure, episode 28. Listen as I, a young choir director, and my husband, a young composer, interview other music educators in order to gain insight into their own success in the classroom. We have a lot to learn, and we want you to learn with us. No matter your age, ensemble, or experience, this is the ideal podcast for music educators, composers, and students alike. So join us as we go beyond the measure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Measure, a podcast for music educators. If this is your first time listening to this show, this is just a show where me, a composer, and my wife, Kara, who is a choral director, both pretty young in our music careers, we interview different music educators just to learn about what they do to be successful in the classroom on whichever topic they feel really passionate about. And so we hope that it will also in turn help you grow as a music educator, because at the end of the day, we believe that music educators play such a vital, crucial role in the success of students and by extent, making the world a better place. And so that is a very, very important duty that we want to help contribute to in that way. Now, this is actually a part 2 episode of an interview we did with Miss Sarah Gleason, who is a choir director at New Canaan High School in Connecticut. And so if you haven't heard that one, just go back to the previous episode right before this. I tell you a little bit more about Sarah and her background at the start of that episode so you can get to know her better. But without further ado, we'll get going on this next episode. She talks a lot more about the fundamentals on how you can build community and different types of things that can kind of really help create that foundation of community in the classroom. And so we have show notes in the description if you want to download those. That way you can have all of the thoughts said throughout this episode in its own little outline if that's something that you would benefit from. So thank you so much for listening. And without further ado, here is part 2 of our interview with Miss Sarah Gleason. So what other ways are there any other ways that you kind of see that buy-in play out in the classroom?
Through a lot of the things that we have set in place, I kind of find that the repertoire buy-in is a roller coaster. You will have the perfect piece for this ensemble, and you are so excited to do it, and it will not be going well, and something is just not clicking. And there have been times where I have been adamant and said, no, I know this is good for you. One of their quotes of mine is talking about eating your choir vegetables, which refers usually to sight singing. But most often, there's nothing I can do sometimes to make a piece work that isn't working. And so one of the ways that has happened less and less, it will never not happen, right? We often have pieces, is that finding your why for every decision you make. And this became even more important to me as I became a mom. I currently have 2 teenage boys, and we always say that we're not going to do the things that, our parents did. And, they always said, because I'm the mom and I said so, and I'm never going to do that. And then you find yourself going, because and I want to say it so badly. In the classroom, I think that applies too. I tell my students ad nauseum, you can always ask me why, because if I don't have a reason why we're doing anything down to the vowel we used on that warm up, I need to rethink it. And I've empowered them, hopefully, to challenge me. We talk about challenging, in a respectful way and how we talk about things after class, but ask why, because I always want to have a why, and we might not always agree on it, or you might not understand it, but I want to have a why. So with repertoire, if I can't justify my why to the students, I give myself the speech, I go through everything I want to do with this piece. And if I'm like, I don't know if I can get them to buy in, I might need to think again. My why needs to be strong enough, not just my love of the piece and not just that it fits their ranges. It has to be that perfect storm. And I could spend forever looking at repertoire. I love it. And everything has to have its place. But I think getting rid of my stubbornness and having some humility of making sure I have the why and being willing to change course if need be, is very important. So whatever your why is, whether it's the text or the vocal pedagogy in the piece or whatever your whys are, just deal with yourself and with those ahead of time so that you're ready. So that's one way with buy-in, is that that self-reflection that happens before. And then I think it's important in any choral repertoire and program to have variety and have representation. I think that builds trust in your students that I have a lot of different things, and therefore you probably might not have lots of favorites on the program because you're going to go to one thing or another, but everyone has their different favorites. And so having themes for concerts, I think, is a way that you can have lots of different styles, lots of different language, lots of different things, and have a why, a reason for putting in there. But each piece needs to feel different to them, not just to me, because I've delved into the piece. Each piece needs to feel very different. So the variety, don't be scared of things that you might not think fit chorally. Don't be scared of something that is odd or different, as long as you think that they can learn something from it. And then within that variety, looking for representation of the students in front of you, the styles, the languages that are spoken. We sometimes assume that students are only listening to today's popular music because it's often all they'll talk about. And especially in middle school, where the mantra is conform to survive sometimes, you won't have chances except one-on-one to delve into what they're listening to with their parents at home, or something that excited them. They might not want to admit it. And so ask questions, get deeper, use their experiences to try out different languages. And at the same time, I think it's very important that we are sensitive to never expect one of our students to be a culture bearer for their language or for their group. But I think as long as we are making sure that sensitivity is there, but we're also looking for representation in our choir, but we have a reason and we have done the research on that piece and we've brought in an expert to talk about, I think both things can happen, not counting out any type of music. Choral is not a genre. I tell them it's not, Gleason, I was listening to choir music. I was like, well, tell me about that. And so, and I was listening to, are we only going to sing classical music? Well, let's talk about what your definition is of that. So I think the musical variety and representation is a way that you can lean towards, some buy-in with the repertoire.
Oh yeah. Well, I can vouch for that. I'll always remember as a student in high school, um, when I was in music theory. I was lucky enough to be in a music theory class in high school, which not a lot of high schools get to have. But we, for like one of our final projects for the school year, we had to do a presentation on on like a piece or a composer or something like that. But it could be anyone we wanted. It didn't have to be classical or whatever. And so I did one on one of my favorite composers, whose name is Thomas Bergeson, and he's a part of a group called Two Steps from Hell, actually. But they do like epic orchestral, like movie trailer sounding orchestral music. And so I did a presentation on that, and a couple of my other friends in the class did presentations on like video game soundtracks and things like that. Well, then the next year, going into that fall, my choir director, she was like, man, a whole bunch of my AP music theory students were looking at like soundtrack type music. So we're going to sing this. And it was like an arrangement of the Lord of Castamere from Game of Thrones. So it was like the Game of Thrones soundtrack. And so it was cool being able to like sing that and knowing that it's like, oh, my participation in the class kind of helped result in that. And it was a really, really good feeling for that kind of thing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, no, there are great ideas out there and things that we won't think of. We can use our students to help us with those ideas. And sometimes my statement about listen to all their crazy ideas, um, sometimes those can be used outside of the large choral ensemble. Don't be afraid of small groups and something that is different than a formal concert, whether it's a open mic, a showcase, an informants. We did these within the class. We invited the parents if they could come. Um, and or you could just, if you don't want to call it a recital or a showcase, and there's so many words, have a theme. We had a theme for a concert that was called The Beat of Our Hearts. And so things that mattered to them, that was our concert theme, where we performed Shockachi, where they were coming up. And that was one of the reasons Shockachi was perfect, is because there was not a translation. The music was first, and it spoke to putting these syllables with it. And so we got to have conversations about, what do you feel at this point, and what is this music saying to you? So sometimes their ideas might not work for a formal concert. And we don't always walk into a program that has set up other opportunities. There's so many concerts in the year, we're expected to do formal things. But getting creative with ways that you can allow them to explore that end of the year, right after the concerts, are a great time to make small groups in the ensemble. Your students who play instruments, sure, bring out the instruments. At those times, try something together. Write a parody of a song that is ridiculous. Sometimes we wrote parodies of different musical elements that we had been studying. They could use any song that they want, and they would do parodies that taught a musical concept. And so we picked a grade, and they said, okay, third grade. All right, and these were my eighth graders doing this. If you were going to teach a third grader solfege, you can't use Sound of Music. How would you do it? Pick any song. So, and the things they came up with, then we did like names of lines and spaces. So things that by that point, I'm like, come on, people, we know this, but we always need review. They would create parody songs, and we performed them for a few teachers that came down and wanted to hear them. And the students showed their learning by a way to teach it to someone else. It was ridiculous. We had to have talks about, appropriateness for our parodies. But it was a way to use their ideas and bring in the music they want to sing. That was one of those, oh, sweetie, that's not going to happen at a formal concert moments. I think we can be creative to use their ideas. Rap is one they talk about a lot. Rap is poetry, and some of it is beautiful. A lot of it is heartbreaking. How can we use that? Because, how can we use it in small group ways, the things that they're passionate about? I think we can find ways for those ideas. So not being afraid of small groups and little informances, even if they only do it for each other. Sometimes those are the things that they'll remember quite a bit.
It's incredible what a multitude of minds can do, no matter the age group. And I think what I'm noticing across almost everything that you're talking about is that at the end of the day, it requires humility and vulnerability from you, the director. Which honestly, it's like, for me, I'm like, well, man, I have a hard time doing that with, people my age. It's like, I don't even know if I could do that with a classroom. And so I have so much respect for, teachers like y'all that do that on a daily basis.
I think those areas where we're willing to give up control are very different for each teacher. And it's very different now in my 25th year of teaching versus in my first 5 years of teaching. And I think that might be wise that I didn't give up as much control. Because I was in a middle school classroom, and there are certain things you must keep control of. And with a high school classroom, you can relinquish just a little bit more. And when I was younger, there were things that I needed to, for lack of a better term, prove to them that I do know what I'm talking about. And those little things will build over time. This is not an overnight thing. A lot of the ideas I'm throwing out have been things that we've worked on. We're adding a new idea, a new officer position next year. The students, they wanted to, some of my guys were like, can we start like a barbershop quartet and rehearse a few times after school and perform at the concert? And now they keep sending me, name ideas and things. I was like, sure. So one of my all-staters wanted to kind of lead that on. It was his idea. And he said, I would like to grow myself in learning to lead an ensemble, because in college, I think that's something I might want to do, is like, because we talk about, as they're preparing for college, so many groups are student led. And he said, I think I'd like to learn, to write arrangements. He's taken AP music theory with me, and I'd like to learn to work in a group, work with them. And I said, that's a great idea. How about like a student ensemble leader where I will take care of the organization? We will choose the literature together, but his officer position is in our officer meeting. He will be creating kind of a rehearsal plan for the 30 minutes they're going to be together and learning to decide what we rehearse. And it's been really fantastic for me to talk to a student about rehearsal pacing and about giving the same things I was saying to you, giving them time away from you, because he's going to be working with his peers. He doesn't know so much more than all of them. He doesn't know it all. And it was their idea, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm really excited to try this, especially with some of the tenor basses that just want to do another piece or two. So it continues to that humility and being open to ideas. Just it keeps growing, and what is right for one director is not right for another. So finding those ways in which you need to stake your ground. I tell them, if the minute it is not a democracy, I will let you know. You will know when I say this, this we are doing. But for most things, a discussion is always available. Actually, for everything, a discussion is available. And the minute that, something is not up for discussion, you'll know immediately. I'll preface it.
Let's take a quick break from this episode so that I can tell you about this podcast's primary sponsor, Christian Fortner Music. That's right, my own music business. If you're looking for fresh new music ranging anywhere from middle school choir to college level orchestra, there's a good chance I'll have it. And while I am a young composer, my music library is constantly growing as I write more and more. The way I sell the music is a little different from other music retailers as well, which I think you'll like. Instead of purchasing a minimum number of individual copies or parts, you'll purchase one PDF that includes all parts in it, of which you can print out as many times as you need. That way, you don't have to stress about purchasing a new part that you misplaced or feel the shame of only purchasing 10 copies for your ensemble of 40. Come on, we've all done it before. Now, if you'd like a sample of what my music is like, you can actually receive a completely free piece of music from a certain selection when you sign up for my mailing list. Plus, you'll be a part of other fun perks, such as receiving monthly updates from me and early access to podcast episodes such as this one. If that's something you'd be interested in receiving, you can do so at christianfortnermusic.com/mailings. Well, so is there anything else? I mean, you've gone over so much good stuff already. I'm really excited to share this with everybody. I mean, is there anything else that, aside from what we've already covered, that you feel like makes a big contribution, or big or small contribution, to how community is formed in the classroom?
I think one other heading that I find myself saying, my band and orchestra director and I talk about this a lot, the things that don't matter, but they matter. That you can say, okay, it doesn't really matter if I have a bowl of mints on my desk, but it kind of matters that I have a bowl of mints on my desk. That the things that technically do not have to exist in a choral classroom, but those are part of the buy-in of students. I want my room to be the hangout place. I want them to want to be there. I want them to show up after school. And not every teacher does. Um, and that's, where you have to find the things of what you want your students to get out of your room. But I want them there anytime possible. And so making the room a place they want to hang out and getting their input on it. This is one of those, remember about listening to all the ideas? So based on my students' ideas, we have a Keurig in the choir room. The first year, they were like, you know what? It would really be nice when our voices are hurting to be able to make tea, before we left. And I said, you're right. That would be great. So for Christmas that year, I asked for a Keurig, and I got a Keurig for the choir room because we didn't need one at my house. And we have a Keurig, and the students will bring in, I was at the grocery store and I bought in a box of tea bags. So we have tea, and then another student, and there's certain students who take advantage of it almost daily. Some students, I brought in these hot chocolate packets. Is that okay? Sure. Whose turn is it to bring in some hot cups? And I will replenish as we need. But we have a Keurig. And we have a small refrigerator that I wanted to have in the room anyway to put my lunch in, but that was something that, Miss Gleason, can I put this in your fridge? Absolutely. And my upperclassmen tell the new students on the first day of school, so here's the Keurig and here's the fridge, and you can put in middle school, I would have they knew I had granola bars and snacks in my desk because I told them you're not going to be a good student in any of your classes if you're hungry. If you need something, you come in here. Um, I started keeping extra lunch bags in my room, like paper lunch bags, because I cannot tell you the amount of students that put a water bottle in their lunch bag and then the condensation made the bag break. And they were so embarrassed because you cannot in middle school walk into the lunchroom with just holding your stuff. You need something to put it in. So things like that things that don't matter but matter. We have a couch in the choir room. To that we did a fundraiser and we raised money and got a couch. We want it to be the safe and hangout places. So that environment, whatever you can do that they think that's cool. None of my other rooms have that. Our rooms are different. Like you said, the sports teams, I use sports analogy all the time because it's the only other place that cross grade and a lot of people are coming together for the same goal, that what you do matters and what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, I think one of the things that doesn't matter but it matters is food and chilling. I talk about it's a place for food and chilling whenever, and having food events. We have a social chair, is one of our officer positions, and they are in charge of food. Meaning, if we had an event when we did a fundraiser and we came to deliver things on a Saturday, they made a sign up and had people bring things. I didn't even have to worry about it, so that we could have food while we were working because it makes it more fun. That social chair. The other thing, they decide how birthdays are celebrated, and they design a birthday card that I get copied in the copy center. And at the beginning of the year, it is my job to give them the birthdays of everybody in the choir. And then my job is done. And those social chairs will map out whose birthdays. And I have a calendar on the wall just for all the events. And I put concerts and stuff on that. They put everybody's birthday on it. And they make sure that like the week before, they write their name on the card and they put it on the piano. And during the week, when people see cards on the piano, they're like, oh, his birthday's coming up. And they sign them. And this is something that they came up with the idea. And our social chair is in charge of making sure everybody gets a card on their birthday, because I will forget what to sing. I will get into the lesson. I will forget everything. And it makes me feel terrible when I do. So it's also their job to remind me when we have a birthday to sing for, or when we have 3 birthdays the next week to sing for, and we sing happy birthday before we leave. So again, do you have to sing for everybody's birthday? No, but it doesn't matter, but it matters. Things like that, letting them hang pictures around the room. I asked anyone, I've got a bunch of pictures from this. Is anybody good at decorating? Oh, great. I have this bulletin. Can you make something happen here? Oh, the ownership and the buy-in to who will decorate. Someone gave me flowers after the concert, and I brought them to the choir room. If I'm given flowers after the concert, they stay in the choir room. They don't come home with me because this was a picture of our concert together. And so I have a certain girl in my choir that is like, I love to arrange flowers. So every time a concert happens, I say, I help. And she comes and I tell you, she makes sure everyone has seen how she's arranged the flowers, because it's beautiful. And it's just a reminder of it's their room um, that they have. So I think the environment of the room is an important thing. And the other thing, if you're into games and competition, who said sight singing needs to be boring? The person who instilled this in me, I student taught outside of TCU with Mary Jane Phillips
Love
way back when, and she is one of the first people. She has now written a book about sight reading games, and I've been playing some of her sight reading games since I was a senior in college. That she was one of the first people to say, if it's boring, you're doing something wrong. And so creating opportunities for a little bit of competition, and how that competition goes depends on your group. You need to know your group. Pitting them against each other works really well for some groups, not for others. Teacher against student sometimes works for some groups, some doesn't. But finding games that work, and Mary Jane Phillips' book, it's sight reading for, I'm forgetting the exact title, but it is full of wonderful games that she has curated over years and years, and also empowered me as a 22-year-old to create my own games as well. So we still pull out sight reading football and trash get ball and bingo and, tic-tac-toe. In middle school, playing a sight reading game was the one fail-safe way that I could almost always get students to sing by themselves in front of the rest of the class completely on their own accord. Because if you are going to get 25 yards, a 25-yard pass in sight reading football, because one member of your team, and it's the tenor bass choir, team against team, someone has to sing this little 4 measures, 2 measures sometimes by themselves to get the 25-yard pass. All of a sudden, every single one of those boys who has hated sight reading for forever wants to sing it by themselves because, gosh darn it, I am going to be that wide receiver that gets the 25-yard pass and wins it for the team. So I think games, you don't have to do them. You can just read the exercise. But if you can find something that works for your classroom, little healthy competition, there's a lot of musical things that can come out of it that you might not be able to get out of them any other way, having a little bit of fun with it. After a concert, we pick a song and we part swap. There are certain songs that, everybody loved that baritone solo. Everybody gets to sing it. And the sopranos sing the tenor part. And if we have a tenor bass song and a treble song, they get 10 minutes apart and they prepare each other's songs and they perform them for the rest of the choir. It's silly. And it is, but the song that they couldn't sing or the part they could, no, I love the tenor part on this that they never got to sing. And we are belting it out with not the best vocal technique. Sometimes at the day after the concert, did we have to do that? No, but it is something they look forward to after the concert every time is the song swap or the part swap. It's like when you switch roles in musical theater and you let people play each other's roles. They've been waiting to do it so long.
Oh, that's so cool. And what I like about all of those things that you said is that, I mean, all of those things are easy to do, at least as far as to physically do. I mean, like you said, different classroom, all classrooms are different. So, it's up to you, the director, to know what's going to be appropriate for that group. But at the end of the day, none of those things are hard to do. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of extra, effort to put those things in. Yet those are just little things that, especially when they add up together, makes a huge difference in how the perception of the class is from the students.
Right. We need the little things because I think a lot of us can agree that outings and trips are great ways for your students to bond. Um, but they take a lot of planning and they take permission and it takes time. And I highly encourage trying to have your students spend time together non-musically as well as musically if you can. But those things are a lot more, it take a lot more planning. My students, again, without me, after the concert, the alto section leader said uh, she and another friend were going to go get ice cream at a place after. And so they told all the altos, they're like, alto outing and ice cream. And a few of them went. Not everybody could, but it was just spending time together outside. But when we aren't able to take a trip, trips, cost money, outings cost money and planning time and permissions. The little things you can do within the time that you have, um, I think will make a big difference. One that the students suggested to me, I think it was my second year at the high school, Miss Gleason, can we do a Secret Santa? And at that time, every single person in the choir celebrated Christmas. And so I was like, okay, that can be appropriate, but you can do we've done secret friends before, secret rehearsal partners. And it was something that, okay, like we don't have to. It doesn't mean anything musically, but what it's turned into is it's something that our social chair and the vice president plan together, and we do it with those rehearsal partners. So nobody is doing one-on-one or, oh no, I forgot. The rehearsal pairings draw a name of another rehearsal pairing, and we have like a limit so people aren't buying a lot of things. And part of it has become, without my knowing, that they hide it somewhere in the classroom. So, during that time, people are searching everywhere and things are hidden in places I didn't even know existed. But it was their idea to do some sort of little swap and then someone suggested, "Oh, can we do it with our rehearsal partner?" Because often at high school, you have an upperclassman, underclassman. One of them sometimes drives and is able to get it. And I've watched a freshman and a junior go, shopping at CVS together at the pharmacy, and go together to get like candies for someone else. Is something that you can do with not a lot of time out of rehearsal and not a lot of preparation to, build that community with them, and taking yourself out of the equation. Um, Although now I've convinced them to put my name in too, because I felt I had big FOMO. I was like, I'm left out. I said, can I be in there? They're like, but you won't have a partner. I said, that's okay. Is that okay with you? But I asked them, and they said, yeah, we talked about it. It's all right if you're in the Secret Santa. I said, oh, thank you so much. So now I get to be in the Secret Santa, and that means some of them draw me. One year I walked into the piano being wrapped like a
That's
present.
hilarious.
Yeah. And this year I got a new water bottle that I use every single day. And those students every day go, "Oh, you're using the water bottle we give you." Yes, I am. Absolutely. I will never take that water bottle out of the classroom. I want them to see
Yeah.
it on my desk every
Mm.
day because it was their idea. So, anything that they have complete ownership of is a plus in my book, because the music, it comes with it.
Wow. They're not as separate as you would think. That all impacts the music and how it comes out.
Well, when they have buy-in to the ensemble, they have buy-in to the success of the ensemble, and caring. Plus, I am working very hard to build them musically with every, warm up in our music literacy and all of our vocal pedagogy. Um, I take responsibility for that. If it's not happening, it's on me. But the things that they have learned, then when they do have time separate from each other, and I walk around to the sections or the rehearsal partners, yes, to make sure they're on task, but I'm hearing things that I've said come out from that section leader's mouth. Or can we go, we really aren't blending on that vowel. Think of a little bit, taller. Do you remember when we, took the mints and we all got a mint and we put it between our molars to make sure that we had space in the back? It's not, and I'll be like, okay, and I'll just walk away. And sometimes they'll explain something in a way that I didn't. And then when we come back together, I'm like, altos, I really heard you talking about this. Can you tell us what you talked about in your ensemble? And they share with the rest of the class. That the things we do, we have to trust that what we do every day with them pedagogically is going to come through. It will sink in and come through them. And we have to find opportunities to give them the ability to do that, or else they graduate or they leave and go to high school. And we go, well, I hope something stuck. And we've never heard them express it to someone else. I want to hear that in my classroom, because it also, it's the reason I became a teacher and not just a performer for my own music making, because I want to hear you take something you've learned, and I want to hear you share it with someone else, because that is what brings me the most joy, is to share things that I've heard with them. And it's like watching your child grow up, hearing them do it for another member of the choir. There is no greater joy than hearing them translate that learning to each other. Um, I never thought I'd say I got a lot of joy from them taking me out of the picture, but it's like watching your child grow up and be ready to leave with all that you've taught them. Um, they're my choir kids, and it is very important to me that they leave me being as independent of a musician as possible. And so that foundation of buy-in is something I will keep trying to do my best at and get better and better at, for the good of them when they leave my room, so that they can be lifelong lovers of learning and music. And I tell them, I'm training you to be a professional consumer of music. If you're not going to be a professional teacher or performer, that I want you to talk intelligently and love it for the rest of your life.
Wow. Oh, beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I feel like that's a great way to kind of start wrapping this up here. That's so good. Sarah, you've shared so much wonderful information with us. Is there anything else you feel like you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap it up here?
Oh, like I would say to my Students, you've heard me talk enough today. What do you guys have to say about this? Because I think it's the blessing and the curse of your passion also being your career. That I'm so lucky to love spending time with them each day, but I could go on and on about it because I do.
Man, well, if I had known ahead of time that, how much influence your own students actually have in how the classroom works, man, if we'd had enough microphones, they could have all just come and been on the podcast together. That might have been a little chaotic, though.
Oh my goodness. A lot of them would be more than happy to share. They can even share their list of Miss Gleason sayings. When we did our senior goodbye at the end of the year, two of my seniors admitted that, when we got in trouble for whispering to each other during rehearsal, or when you said, so and so, is your phone out? Or something like that. We promised Miss Gleason 99% of the time we just had to write down something you were saying so we could share it at the end of the year.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So thank you. And some of the things they shared, I didn't remember saying, and some of them I'm like, yep, I say that. And we laughed so much about, okay, there was context to that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Well, if you're listening to this and you're a part of the new Canaan High School concert choir, we love you. You're awesome, and y'all make a difference for all the people around you, whether it's performing or just who you're working with at your school. So y'all are doing great stuff over there. Which, on that note, Sarah, for anyone that's listening that would like to, get to know you or your choir better, how can they connect with y'all?
I am completely open to email at any time. We can put that in the notes, but my name is Sarah with an H Gleason at ncps-k12.org, my school email. I love collaborating with other teachers. And so I am more than happy to start a conversational relationship with anyone. And we do have a choir website that we try to keep some things on that we're doing, New Canaan High School choirs.weebly.com. And we try to put things up there, their individual accolades and pictures and concerts that we're doing. It's a nice way for them to be able to share with their parents and the community what they've been up to.
Perfect. And I know y'all have an Instagram as well because they followed me.
Oh,
And
yes.
so
And again, completely student
I
run,
got
but
that
they
impression.
elect. Yeah, they elect. Yeah, uh-huh. They do. And that I work closely with that person, but that was something new for high school. Miss G, we should have an Instagram. So we do.
Wonderful. And we'll be sure to link that and all that stuff. And I'll go ahead and link the recording of y'all's performance of Shockachi as well in the description. So if any of y'all want to listen to that, they did such a great job with it. But man, it's been great, Sarah, and I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk. And I hope to be working with you again sometime in the future. But it's been great. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. I am very grateful that I got to meet you and we got to work on this piece and I got to meet Kara and talk with you all today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Beyond the Measure, a podcast for music educators. We hope you learned something that will help you stress less about how to teach so that you can focus more on who you're teaching. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a rating and review, subscribe, and share this podcast with other music educators. See you in the next one.